If awareness is the doer, does that mean that we have no free will? Well, no. This is a great question, but the answer is no, because that's still looking at it as something outside of us. So awareness is within us. It's what we are. It's not some entity or something else that is outside of what we are doing things, right? So because when consciousness is doing everything, does that not give it the illusion that we have a choice? Well, we do have a choice. The thing is, again, with that second part of the question is that's still looking at consciousness as something that's outside of us. And that's not what that is. It is us. Awareness, source, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, creator, is what gives us the power to create the free will, right? It is the power of free will, because source is everything, right? It is all things. That's what's behind it. Okay? That's why we have free will. The illusion is when we start to believe the ego, when we start to give attachments and put conditions on and limits on things that we want to be or what we want to have. When we start to condition that is the illusion, because everything is always changing, right? It is temporary. It's not permanent. The only permanence is truth, which is what you are, which is source awareness. That is the truth. And everything else is illusions, because it's always changing. But what remains the same always, right, is source, is awareness. Unchanging, indifferent. It always remains, no matter what is happening. It doesn't judge circumstances. It doesn't think of anything as good or bad. It doesn't scold. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't judge things. Source is source. Awareness is awareness. Unchanging. That is the constant. And when the ego kicks in and is like, yeah, but it asks a question, right? Like that, like, yeah, but like there has to be something controlling it. Oh yeah, we're living in a simulation. Like there has to be a controller that is not me, or that is not, the little me, right? It has to think in this logical, action taking, finite way, because it can't expand itself to wrap itself around it, because it thinks that it's itself, the ego, that does everything. It has to be validated. It has to be the one and only power that you're focused on, so that it stays alive, so that it is worshipped in a way. Okay? It wants you to believe it. It wants you to listen to it. It wants to just keep it going, because so then it'll throw in a bazillion different thoughts all day, and then you start to you're asking questions, and asking questions is really good, but at the same time, it's when you're to the point where you're like, I can't even think anymore. I don't want to think anymore. Rupert Spira talks about this. When you take your mind to the end of understanding, and then that's when it comes into the knowing that it's okay that you don't understand. There's some things that our ego, our finite mind, won't be able to understand, and that is okay. That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. That doesn't mean that it's not true or it's not real. Just because you believe something doesn't make it true. Yes, keep asking your questions, but when you notice that it's like, when you're veering off towards, okay, well, there has to be something. There has to be something out there that's puppeteering, that's controlling. That's when you know that is the ego asking questions so that it can validate itself. That's all it's doing. And then two, when you're when the ego is like, oh yeah, but there has to be, like, we have to figure out how, like, we need to know how this is going to work. And you check the 3D and you're like, yeah, well, I need to know, like, how this is going to happen. I need to see something. I need that tangible proof. I need to be able to see it so that I believe it more. And then when the ego is like, well, yeah, but you don't understand. There has to be something controlling it. We just don't know what it is. So you better listen to me, because I will just guide you and I will lead you in this. We're going to figure this out, and it's going to take time. It's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of work, and nothing comes easy. We have to struggle, and no pain, no gain, and we're always going to be striving, because then we'll really feel it. And then once we get that thing, once we achieve it, we make it to that mountain top, then we can feel good. But then what happens? You're like, yeah, well, that was a struggle. You get burnt out. You might stumble, right? You might fall, and then you get back up again, and you're like, yeah, I overcame that thing. I overcame it, and I am so strong. And then the ego fucking loves that. And then it finds something else to try to conquer so it can get that validation again. That's what it's about. So really not about the struggle. Although in the struggles, in the triggers, those are always opportunities for us to grow. It's always telling us something to look at, right? Not stay in, but to look at, so that we can expand and discover for ourselves. And that's where self-inquiry really, really comes in handy.